Alright, so in this video I would like to go over how I would start my watercolor. So first off, I have my border, right? My 1/2-inch border on my entire sheet of watercolor paper. I taped it, which is optional. If you're going to tape it, please use painter's tape. If you do come to school, I do have painter's tape that you can use and I can give to you. You also want to make sure you have your water bucket, you have your palettes and your paints all organized. You also want to make sure you have paper towels for drying off your paintbrush. Alright, so what I'm going to do is show you how I would take some of these techniques that you've learned and apply them to your watercolor. So I'm going to start with a solid wash. While I do my solid wash, I'm probably going to add a few different variations of that color. I'm also going to show you lifting in this video, and then I'm going to pause and create another video and show you a few other techniques. Alright, I might go over water droplets in this video too, but I can't really do some of the other ones yet until I do the ones I went over and allow it to dry before going into other parts. So it's a process, right? So remember, when you're working with watercolor, you want to really be mindful, especially getting like a solid kind of a wash. Really push your paints, right? So I'm going to cover over this whole starfish, right? When I paint, okay, this is the color that I would like, but it creates this like pool of paint. I want to push that pool of paint. See that pool of paint that's being created here? My job is to be pushing that forward. And when you're working with watercolor too, you want to make sure that, I don't know, you got to master kind of working fairly quickly, because if you let areas dry, they can leave marks. So I wouldn't start working on this area, just continue to work on the area that you started. Make sure you make enough of the color that you're trying to get so that you have enough to work with. Alright, so this would be considered a solid wash. Alright, now let's say I wanted to, I don't know, bleed other colors into it, right, just for fun. Maybe I wanted to bleed a little bit of red into it. This paint is all wet, so as I add wet red, you can see that it's, you'll see that it'll slowly bleed into one another. Might have worked a little bit better if my paints they're drying quickly. But wet paint and wet paint will bleed, right? So you can see that all those paints are kind of bleeding into one. Now if you did not want to create this like bleeding effect where colors are kind of mixing together, you need the colors to dry a little bit more. And I'm going to show you that in the next video. So like for instance, I just started painting in the basic color of this starfish, right? I'm not going to go start painting in the background yet because this is still wet. If I start to paint the sand in the background, that sand is going to start bleeding into my starfish. And I don't want that. I want to keep this nice straight edge that I've created. So in my next video, I'm going to start going over how I would then lay down the color for the background. Okay. But for now, you know, as I'm working, just kind of keep in mind, I would just start focusing on like laying down color, as much color, like just the beginning stages of color. Right now that I can't really work on the sand area, I'm going to start working on the ocean area. All right, which is over here because it's not connected to the starfish. So I'm going to try and figure out, let's see what color. I like that blue. Just making my blue over here. Okay, so I'm going to start adding it. Okay. I'm going to do different variations of blue. Okay, so in this one, so in this little area of the ocean, I am going to add like water droplets. Let's see what happens when I... just to create a cool texture on... that actually would be really cool in the sand too. See how it creates these like crystallized. That would be cool if you did like an underwater coral type of look. Now I almost want this color to bleed into that one, so I feel like it's okay that that I start painting. So what I did is I'm just adding more water to the blue I had and making like a lighter variation of that blue. See? Kind of bleeds into each other. Now what I'm going to do here too is lift some of the paint. So what I'm going to do is add some water to this area. I'm going to take my paper towel, okay, I'm going to scrunch it up, and since it's supposed to be water coming onto the beach, maybe I'm going to use my paper towel to lift some of it up. Might be hard to see, but it's lifting some of the blue up from that area. Okay, even kind of add texture into that area too. Okay, so now I'm at a point where this is still, you always want to feel it's still a little wet, and so is this. So I'm gonna let these dry, and I'm gonna wait and then start on my second video once they're dry, which would be laying down the sand in the background, and then also beginning to layer details on top of my starfish. Like some of the lines I've created, I want to add some of those nice details without it bleeding. All right, so that'll be in my next video. So this is the process and how I feel like you should start working.